What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out this segment of the main show. Be sure to check out the full EXFIL podcast at youtube.com/XPMediaNow.
To me, like, realism is it's a secondary thing. If you have a feature that you want to implement, whether it should be added or not is completely independent from if it's realistic. Either it's good for the game or it's not. That stands alone. If it happens to be realistic, I think that's a bonus, because anytime you can add something to realism, that's great, but never just for the sake of realism, in my opinion. And I haven't really heard anybody serious who's been able to defend realism is always good for the sake of it, because you just got to say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about, well, no. Oh, no. Oh, why? Because it's not fun. I would actually very much, I liked Tarkov back when I first started in like 0.6 days. There was no face hitbox, and I have a feeling that armor was a little bit better, ammo was a little bit worse, people were a little bit more tanky, and around that time, that's when my KD was 18 and my survival rate was 85%, because the time to kill went up just long enough to where it's like the arm wrestling match. It's like Call of Duty, where even if you see me before I see you, if I'm twice as good as you, I'll be able to flick to your head and kill you in half the time, because my aim and my reaction time can compensate for it. If you see me now and you get one or two shots on me, I'm going to run out of stamina, my armor is probably going to be zeroed, and I'm going to be like all blurry and trying to figure out, what's going on. It really does reward people who are prepared. And the hard part is that fun is not the same for everybody. If you were to increase the time to kill, even just slightly, it would be more fun for me, but I actually think it would be less fun for the newbies, because they would just get turned on. They'd be shooting some dude in the back, and the guy would be good enough to turn and kill them all too often. It would be like Call of Duty if there was no like matchmaking, or CSGO if there was no matchmaking. It would just be, people just getting steamrolled.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like taking everything that you've talked about and wrapping it into this point, right? You talked about all of these factors that go into Battle Buddy. We talked about balance related to that, meaning the time to kill is low, but it's relatively equal to new players and experienced players. So my original question that I wrote down, and I'm going to modify, was, is there a system that used to be fun that went more towards realism and you want back? But the way I want to modify it is, I'm thinking in particular about this conversation around armor plates, right? And how they're going to take the relatively easy to understand armor class system now, and they're going to allow, presumably, able to put armor plates in different slots and basically customize your armor. And what I just heard you say was, well, if we up the time to kill, it's going to really favor the veterans. And it's almost like, okay, I know that's realistic, but is there really a reason to do that? And I guess I would turn that to you, because I'm sitting here questioning it based on everything you just said.
From the perspective of building a loadout and sitting in my inventory, it's just like building guns. Like, that part of the gameplay is awesome and immersive and super fun, and it's super addicting. But right now, as is, even just me explaining how I had to build that simulation to really get an idea for, like, if you ask a player, and I would love to, like, be able to grab any random Tarkov person and say, if I have bullet A with these stats and I shoot you in the left arm twice and the right arm once, what's your HP at? Nobody on planet Earth can do the math. Nobody will know. Nobody will know. People can guess and they can come close, but every other game in the history of games, you can say, oh, well, you have 100 HP and the thing does 30 damage, so you're going to have 70, then 40, like, you can very quickly do the math. The complexity of the systems in Tarkov as they are now, just figuring out when you get hit with a bullet, how much damage is done to the armor. I pulled this up on stream the other day. I ended up like redacting most of it, because I didn't want to show the actual values, but it was like, n times x divided by this other thing rounded to either if it's less than 0.3 or more than 0.1, you need to like clamp it to these values, then divide it by 100, then multiply it by another value, then divide that by another value that you get from another function that has 7 variables. That's how much armor damage is done. And now they want to make it even more complicated to where there's individual plates, and it's like it's fascinating and awesome from an engineering and an immersion perspective, but it's really annoying from a hey streamer, how does this work perspective, because half of the content creators that I love are going to say here's how it works and give a really oversimplified, really through a pinhole, works most of the time but not all the time answer that unfortunately it's the 20, 30, 40, 50% of the time it doesn't work that people say, I thought it was A, B, and C, and these are the 3 rules, but then this one time something happened that I didn't expect. So it must have been a bug, or it must have been a cheater, or it must have been a hacker. Well, no, it could have been fragmentation and ricochet and this other thing, like, and I have to explain and answer those questions or build simulations around it. I'm not for it. I honestly wish that they totally would simplify all of the systems, just because it would be better for players to be able to digest, and it would be easier for them to implement and understand, and from an engineering perspective, control, test, debug, and control for. But the thing is that now when they make changes and they want to balance things, if Nikita says, okay, I want to make SP6 a little bit better, nobody on planet Earth knows if I take the damage and I increase it from 37 to 41, the amount that you've just changed one major variable, it's like a tornado in Kansas caused by, a warm front out in North Dakota. Like, it's just all these things intertwined, and unfortunately, the biggest piece of that is that it makes it hard for the developers to really create a game that they understand and they can control and they can balance. When you look at people like the folks that that make CSGO or make Valorant, like, they know their systems like that. I have the weird feeling that maybe me and No Food After Midnight are kind of the only two that understand the ammo ballistic system on planet Earth, and that really is kind of sad.
Well, and you were into PUBG pretty heavy, right?
Yep.
Are you familiar with Wacky Jackie?
This rings a bell.
YouTube guy. He does all the like ballistic videos for PUBG.
No.
Okay. Well, I bring it up, and this is meant as a big compliment. Like, when I was starting PUBG, Wacky Jackie is the science guy for PUBG. Okay, so I was looking for the science guy for Tarkov, and you're that guy, whether you like it or not.
I like that. I like that. That's what I'm going for.
That's where I was going for. But I like, you're sitting there saying like, hey, streamer, how does this work? Well, let's be real. You're being modest there. People come ask you that question. They don't come ask me that question. I'm going to say, I think it's this. Why? Because I killed that guy. They come to you to say, why does it work that way?
Yes and no. Yes and no.
But you can say, well, the app says this, so deal with it. But I say that jokingly, but I guess what I appreciate and want to point out here is the concept of fun versus realism versus detail and non-detail is, and I don't think that, and what I'm pointing out is I don't hear negativity in that maybe that's too complex or there needs to be a simplification of it, because I think we all appreciate the depth that Tarkov goes into, and it forces you to research, and it forces this almost community connection because you have to ask people questions. And I love that you can look at it from the new player and the expert side